Welcome everyone to Young Minds Empowered Investor segment. I'm Ziba Farha, and today we have a very special guest with us, Christy Bentley, the owner of Parker Prescott Capital Management, an investment advisory firm based in Plano, Texas. Welcome, Chris, to our Kid and Teen Investor podcast segment.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I wanted to ask you, what is your background in finance, and what can you tell us about what got you started in everything?
Sure. Kind of my background is pretty unique. I started out really as a young child reading the newspaper. Just kind of my mom was a trader, and she kind of got me kind of on that path. And back then, it was kind of a little different than it is now for sure. Back then you would read a newspaper, which was a day behind, and then you would basically pick out a stock that you wanted to purchase, and then you'd call up a stockbroker, and stockbrokers don't exist anymore. And then you call up a stockbroker, and they would place a trade for you, and you really didn't know at what price or what time they kind of made that trade, but they would place that trade for you, and then you wouldn't know the execution or anything like that until like the next day that you'd get a phone call, or maybe that day if you were really like a high net worth individual. So it was a lot different back then than it definitely is now, and I learned it just by just kind of asking her a lot of questions and doing a lot of different things.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That does sound very different, and I have to agree. I think things have changed a lot, and the directors at Young Minds Empowered conducted years of market research and SWOT analysis of the current financial literacy programs, specifically in the area of stock investment. And their research found that there is a scarcity and therefore a substantial need for financial enrichment programs and clubs, and that has been made available to our young minds from the 3rd to 12th grade. So that innovation is something we're trying to integrate and do at Young Minds Empowered student-friendly stock curriculum. So is there any more you have to share with us?
Oh yeah, tons. The program itself that you guys are doing is fantastic. Right now there isn't, and I don't think there really has been any real financing classes until you really get into I would say into high school and more into college. Unfortunately, a lot of young people aren't really exposed to trading or understanding what stocks are, or just investing in general. Just having some money to invest in something and watching it grow. So what you're doing is fantastic. As a young person, it's very important to start your mind on investing. If you do some research, and which I really recommend is, looking into some people that have actually made it in life, actually doing trading, or people that, like somebody like a Warren Buffett, for example, that started very young, saving and working a lot of different jobs, and then taking that money and buying stock, and then doing a lot of different things. And everybody knows about Warren Buffett, so I won't elaborate too much on him, but just the idea of investing for the future is where it's at, and it's something that you should take some time to investigate on your own and research on your own as well. We have a lot of sources now that we didn't have back when I was trading at a young age. So we don't have Google, and surely didn't have Twitter to follow people, or YouTube to watch stock trading tips and videos and stuff like that. But there's just a lot of information out there for a young person to grasp onto. And then, of course, the dawn of social media, you can actually reach out to a lot of people like myself if you had a particular question about just general investing as a whole.
Well, I agree. So thanks, Chris, for that. So let's get into our podcast. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Some might sound a little redundant. I know you've touched on it, but can you share with us what you think is really why it's so important for people, especially the young minds that are listening to this podcast, to get involved in stocks and investment?
Well, when you're young, you have a lot of time, and time equals money. And what I mean by that is there's a thing called the Rule of 72, and that tells you the number of times for your money to double. It's actually how compound interest works. So if you take that rule and you use it, and let's say you're buying something that is, very low or even at high, and you buy like one share of that particular item, and you hold it over a long period of time, and let's just say it pays dividends, then it would compound. And if you have a long period of time and you do that for length of time, then you're going to have a great result by doing that. Versus somebody that's older like myself and starts investing at my age, you're not going to have the time to be able to invest just a small amount and have a large return. You actually have to invest a lot of money to have
Mhm.
the same amount. So it's really important to kind of get started and understand how finance works, how money works in general, and just going about just saving and investing for your future.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. As someone who's in her 20s who hasn't really looked into investing until I was, in my early 20s, I feel like that law of 72 really does apply to me. I feel like I wish I had gone and done this much more younger. So, can you give us a little background on what really got you started in stock trading? I know you touched upon that earlier, but a little bit more detail. I know you said you read and, things were different when you were younger versus like for these youths.
Yeah, I just realized the power of money at a very young age. I was the kid that was always hustling, so back then there wasn't eBay or Amazon. It was basically, like garage sailing and turning around and flipping it, or somebody would throw something away. I grew up in a pretty affluent neighborhood, so instead of people like trying to fix stuff, they would just throw it away. And I became really good at, just repairing things. So then I turn around and sell it the next weekend, like on the corner, and then people would drive by and be like, "Oh, isn't that like my sound system, like my boombox?" And be like, "Yeah, I fixed it. Like, do you want it back for $20?" So just taking that money and using it to, obviously purchase securities or bonds, or if you're looking to just save some money in your savings account. The whole idea is just to save your money and then be able to use that money at another time. What got me really started was just understanding that if I had extra money and I put it away, just the idea that money likes money. So then money just kind of attracts other money. So I just found that if I just saved a little bit of money, then I usually ended up with more money because that money just kind of sat on the side, and I just ended up saving more and more money, and just ended up investing more and more money. And before you know it, I became pretty successful at it. And then I just wanted to share my success with everybody, so I started my own company and able to manage other people's assets.
Well, cool. What an interesting way of looking at that. Now, before I ask the next question, let me just state a disclaimer that Young Minds Empowered does not endorse any stock trading platforms. We do, however, invite industry professionals like yourself to engage with the youth and to share your stock ideas, stock trading journeys, and just having panelists at the year end stock portfolio presentations that we have. So, with that being said, Chris, while Young Minds Empowered participants only take part in stock simulations using research and creating a stock portfolio of their findings, what would you say are some kid friendly tips that you could share with the oodles of 3rd to 12th grade participants who are in our investor club each year?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest and greatest things that's out there right now is what they call paper trading.
Okay.
And what that is you don't have to trade with any money at all. It's kind of like playing a video game, honestly. You just get to go in there and try to trade on your own and create whatever you want to do, whether it be, trade stocks or bonds. But it's all fake, it's all fake money, and it's just kind of a nice way to introduce yourself to stock trading or commodities, whatever you decide to trade. It's just a thing that I wasn't able to do as a young person, or even as I got older, until some of the different apps got built. So I definitely recommend that starting out the gate. And like I said, do a lot of research. For me, to where I am now, I spent hours upon hours upon hours just doing research. So I definitely recommend that as well.
You have any research articles or resources that you used or you think that kids could use nowadays to look at to, get a better understanding of everything?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, I would just start really at the basics, just Google or go to YouTube and, like how to trade stocks or, it gets more detailed when you get into like patterns and different stuff like that. But in the beginning, I would just start with just the basic stuff, like understanding how to trade, understanding how things work. There's a bid, there's an ask, there's just different things that you need to know about just like any other, game, there's rules to every single game that you do. So I definitely would recommend reading the rules. And when you do paper trade, it's kind of like a game. Just when you're doing it with your own money, it's not really a game because you'll lose. So you have to pay attention and you have to be very um, well versed in understanding what's going on.
So you mentioned paper trading. So for our listeners, for the young especially, what would you recommend the best way to do that with their parents in their free time? How do you think kids could really get into it? I know you said it's more. You kind of mentioned that it's a when you have time you can do that, but for kids, do you think it's a good route to go?
Yeah, I think it's a great route to start. I think that will kind of get you to realize that it's not, very simple. Um, a lot of people, depending on what you do, a lot of people trade and lose money. So you don't want to be one of those people. So you want to definitely do some research. Setting up an account, obviously, you have to have an adult set that up. But once that's set up, you can do a lot of paper trading, and there's nothing really stopping you from doing that, except obviously maybe the adult that set up the account. But you wouldn't lose any money. There's no money involved. Like I say, you just have to have the adult's permission to go ahead and do something like that.
Well, thanks, Chris. You have shared such wonderful insights with our listeners. I just have to say thank you for being a featured guest on our Young Minds Empowered podcast investor segment. Do you have any last minute tips or tricks for our listeners?
Just research a lot. I would definitely, decide, just based off of some things that you see, like maybe go onto like Twitter or Instagram, stuff like that. Some people that are successful trading, and then do some research and follow them and see what they're doing, and then that'll kind of help you kind of form, what you want to do as somebody as an investor.
All right, well, thank you, Chris. Listeners, I am Ziba Farha. Our guest today was Christy Bentley, owner of Parker Prescott Capital Management. Thank you for joining us on the Young Minds Empowered Investment Podcast segment. At Young Minds Empowered, we are dedicated to inspiring, motivating, equipping, and cultivating 21st century financial literate young minds. Thank you.
Thank you.